me feeling like I'm academics.
If you have an update on Diddy, then
Sean Diddy.
Okay, so here's the update on Diddy that I planned to do earlier, but I was trying to follow the case, but like it's still in jury selection. But then apparently there was a big pause during the case. There was many rumors flying left, right, and center, and allegedly people were saying Diddy might be trying to take a 11th hour plea. Now, if you don't know, there was a plea offer already offered to Diddy before trial. Diddy turned it down. We don't know when it was offered, but it was clearly offered before some of the pretrial stuff, and Diddy turned it down. While, remember, they whittled the jury down to 45, right? By the way, today, or I guess a couple hours from now, is going to be the last day. They're going to bring it down to 18, and Monday they're going to start. Right? Am I tripping? No. Wait. No, never mind. It's supposed to be today's Saturday. I'm losing track of the days. I'm sorry. Oh, so today was the last day, so they should have whittled it down to the final, which is 18. However, there was a pause in between yesterday and the day before where people thought Diddy was going to accept a plea. Now, in my, amateur analysis of this, I don't think the government would have done all this to give Diddy any plea below 10 years. I think the plea would have been at minimum 15. Obviously, some of these things carry a sentence of life, but I think 15 to 20 would be in a plea or the range of plea that they would be down for. Diddy clearly turned it down. If there was a new plea or maybe another consideration for Diddy, I would believe that maybe last minute negotiations could get it down to, I don't know. Again, this is still federal court. There's mandatory minimums. So whatever you plead for, no matter what plea deal you have, they can't just be like, oh, we're giving you 1 year for murder. They can't do it. You have to plead to something that's not murder. You get what I'm saying? So I'm like, maybe he could plead to some prostitution shit, and maybe they'll lessen the time that they want him to serve to maybe closer to 10. I just can't see any plea that doesn't give Diddy 10. They want years off of his life spent in the penitentiary. They're not going to give him some summer camp, super easy shit. They want him to be incarcerated for at least 10. They've went through too much trouble. I got to believe that they've spent $1 million in litigation at this point with searches and seizures, also contracting all these firms to go through the surveillance tape, go through his phones, all the people who are breaking down and analyzing evidence, trying to get witnesses. This is a really costly process for the U.S. government. They're spending taxpayer money with that. So I think they want 10 years. I would think they probably offered 15 or 20 at first. Maybe, let's say if it was a last minute plea, they said, all right, if you don't go through trial, I don't know, 14. We'll recommend 12 to 14 years. Maybe Diddy takes it. That was the thought about a possible holdup in the jury selection, and we then get to find out that this is a reality about it with the last day. So let me just kind of jump into it.
Combs is just days away on crime report. May 12th. White hair was present alongside his attorneys as potential jurors were questioned throughout this week. Many admitted they had seen media coverage of the case, including the infamous surveillance footage of Combs allegedly assaulting his ex-girlfriend Cassandra Ventura in a hotel hallway back in 2016, a key piece of evidence that prosecutors plan to use. We believe she's victim one in this case, and I'll tell you what, based on what happened in court today, I think we can almost certainly say that it's Cassandra Ventura. We'll talk about that too. But for decades, Combs was this larger-than-life figure, producing hits for stars like Notorious B.I.G., Mary J. Blige, launching his own fashion empire with Sean John, hosting these lavish parties attended by Hollywood's elite. But now, the man who once seemed invincible sits in a Brooklyn federal jail. His jet black hair, now nearly all gray. Dye isn't even allowed in detention as he faces charges of racketeering, sex trafficking, transportation to engage.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he can't get his hair the way he wants to get it. Wow.
Engage in prostitution. Federal prosecutors are alleging that Combs ran a criminal enterprise where employees like perhaps security guards or assistants, even higher-ranking staff, help facilitate and cover up sex trafficking. The accusations are incredibly chilling that women say that Combs controlled them through violence, drugs, financial manipulation. Prosecutors describe freak-offs as these drug-fueled sex marathons that lasted for days, where Combs allegedly coerced participation.
Why they got Diddy face looking like this? Eyes big as fuck, gray as hell. They got him looking goofy.
In one instance, he allegedly dangled a woman over a balcony. So this is a very, very high-stakes case with incredibly distressing allegations. Now, to get us caught up to speed on what came out of today's proceedings, I'm going to head over now to our very own law and crime reporter, Elizabeth Milner, who is inside that courthouse today, downtown federal court. Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on and also braving the elements. One of the worst rain days we've had here in New York in quite some time. So she's braving the elements for us. Elizabeth, so good to see you. So let's start off how we always start off. How did Combs appear in court, and what did you get from his demeanor? Because we are right now the eve of opening statements on Monday.
Oh yeah, opening statements are just a couple hours at this point away, and we expect a lot to come out from opening statements. But as far as Diddy, how he appeared in court today, I was honestly surprised he appeared in just normal casual wear. I thought because the jury wasn't going to be present today that there was a chance that he could be in MDC jumpsuit, but it's official. He's going to be in that casual sweater. It was navy again today with a white button-up undershirt.
Okay, so there wasn't jury in court for the last day, but they still got to whittle it down. What happened?
He had navy slacks on. Again, no belts, no shoes with laces. Didn't see his shoes or if he was wearing loafers or any of that type of sort. But considering, again, that we are just hours away from opening statements, 72 hours now at this point, that for the most part, Diddy appeared in good spirits. Now, I don't know if that's just a kind of a mask that he's portraying, just so that way when we report on these types of things that we can say things like Diddy seemed upbeat, he seemed confident, that type of thing. But as far as whether or not he appeared nervous or shaken or anything like that, that definitely wasn't the case at all today. He came inside the courtroom, a packed courtroom again today, and that's just what to expect, as a little sliver as far as what we could really expect when opening statements happen on Monday. But as far as Diddy's appearance today, again, upbeat. He waved at everyone inside the courtroom. Not any of his family was inside that courtroom because likely they're in a long time, or they're going to be here for a long time, that 2-month period, which is pretty much what the duration of the trial is expected to be. But he came inside the courtroom. Of course, the marshals escorted him inside. They were also, up to the dappers and looking like Dapper Dans for the most part. They're not in their normal marshal's uniform or anything like that. They're in a full suit. Diddy comes in. He waves at everyone inside the courtroom. He kind of makes eye contact with a lot of us in the media. Then he sits down. For the most part, he chatted with his attorneys, mainly Tenny Garagos today, a couple times with Brian Steele, because when he is sitting at the defense table, he is sitting between those two.
Okay, so this is the picture of Brian Steele. So Brian Steele, we all know, Superman 4 Young Thug. Brian Steele is there, even though we haven't heard of him much. By the way, I think maybe it might just be only our perception of him, but this is one of the few times where we're seeing Brian Steele not be the lead guy. So he's taking like the secondary role. He's not, obviously there's been many motions that's been submitted before, and Mark Agnifilio, he's doing all of that. But it seems like he's in the third chair, damn near, right? He's behind Mark Agnifilio, who's the lead. Then we have Tenny Garagos, and then we have Brian Steele. By the way, one of the most brilliant legal minds, I think people would say, across the country. But not only that, people love his fearlessness as how he went to battle for Thug. They're like, yo, you need a nigga like this. Like, I ain't gonna lie, I want my lawyer to say, yo, I'm gonna fight for him with every drop of blood in my body. And I'm like, damn, that sounds like a lawyer that when your lawyer says, if you gonna lock me up, put me in the same cell as my client. I'm like, oh shit, that's my nigga.
Two attorneys, Tenny Garagos and Brian Steele, over to his left. But he seems in good spirits considering hours away from essentially the trial of his life.
By the way, I said it before, I'll say it again. We plan to cover because board help mortgage. I think your case talk to people. 12 jurors, 6 alternates. Today was going to be the day where both the prosecution and the defense use their preemptory challenges. Each side gets a certain amount of them, where they can strike jurors from that 45 pool down to the number that is needed. They basically can strike for whatever reason, as long as it's not based on race or gender or ethnicity. They don't have to provide a reason. And I thought we were going to get the jury today. Not the case. What happened?
Oh, they didn't get a jury?
Oh, not the case at all. And I did not wake up at 4 o'clock this morning for them not to have a jury today. But yet I am here this afternoon. So for the most part, we did get some type of jury updates, and that being that 2 were actually struck for cause, that being number 295 as well as number 146. As far as 295 goes, the jury department received an email in these last few hours, and they wanted to strike her for cause, or this person for cause, excuse me, because they expressed issues, about personal well-being. The defense pretty much has kind of summarized it that this prospective juror, non-prospective juror at this point, just didn't want to be on the case. Now, as far as number 146, let me clarify that, they had an actual open lawsuit with the city of New York. And, when we're talking about those sequestered questions that came out of Monday or in just the duration of this week during jury selection, some of these questions include, do you have any civil matters that are pending? Do you have any criminal matters that you have been or done with in the past? And according to what was said in court today, that this person didn't have yes on any of those types of answers. And so obviously after doing some digging, it was found that this person has a pending lawsuit with the city of New York. That person didn't disclose that when they were brought in for questioning this week. And so the judge did say that, we're going to strike this person for cause, and that was approved. Now, the defense kind of had an issue with that because it kind of bled into a little bit about number 131, but the judge said that those two issues weren't the same. So the question when it came to prospective juror number 131, the defense wanted them to strike them similar to the previous juror as well, too, but that didn't happen because as far as this person, number 131, the question was just about the engagement with law enforcement. Now, this prospective juror worked in a legal aid office 20 years ago, and she was just an office manager. So the judge didn't find enough cause for them to strike that particular juror. So as far as when we came inside that courtroom today, we all thought that they were going to dwindle that number down from now 43 to what was supposed
18.
to be 18. So that's going to be 12 regular jurors and 6 alternates. But then the judge even mentioned possibly having 3 extra ones just in case through the weekend, because again, we were thinking that this was going to happen today on a Friday, that through the weekend, some of them might trickle down. Some of them might, come to the conclusion over the weekend that they may not serve, or they may not want to serve on this jury. And so they ended up, being like, look, we can get this done on Monday. We can get this done relatively quickly on Monday. Now, the government objected about that. They were completely opposed to it. They said that they want to begin this case as quickly as possible. And even us in the media, we thought when we come Monday morning, we thought we were just going to listen to jury instructions and opening statements were going to get underway. So now when we come in on Monday, because now these 43 jurors have to come in at 8:30 on Monday, and then they will be asked the questions, people will be struck more and more and more and more down until we can get those, again, 12 regular jurors, those 6 alternates. So
the last phase hasn't been done yet. So the last phase is what's called the preemptory challenges, which is like you basically get a couple red flags that you could just throw on the field, be like, get this motherfucker out of here. And unless there's some like other crazy circumstance, you basically get to dismiss someone that you think is just not going to work in your favor. And there's a couple other things that then help bring that number down from 43. So from 45, 2 people dropped out. Now it's 43. And from 43 is going to get down to 18. Even though supposedly the judge is open to, or was open to for Friday, to leave 3 extra people. So instead of 18, have it be 21. And then see what happens on Monday to see if anyone wants to drop out, because they need to have 18. They need to have 18. So they were trying to have 3 buffer in case somebody had to drop out.
Especially from the government's point of view, that they were strongly opposed to doing this process on Monday. There were concerns if jurors needed to be heard, that it could possibly cause this type of domino effect. And prosecutor Maureen Comey, she said that this process could take a long time, and the defense, they were pretty confident that this process could take about 20 minutes. Now, why we couldn't get through this 20 minutes today as opposed to Monday, that's a question for them. But it seems like from both sides that they were under the understanding that this would all get done by essentially 9:30, take a little break, then they would come back, swear in the jury, do jury instructions, then openings would begin, and then possibly we could see a witness even testify on Monday. Now, I don't know how that'll change given that this process has been delayed.
Okay, so the trial is still going to happen and start on Monday, but they have to bring in all the prospective jurors. They're going to dismiss, 23 going down to 18, or 43 going down to 18. It's about like 15 jurors. Yeah, so about 15 jurors. They're gonna is it 15? 18. No, 25 jurors actually.
Just a little bit from Friday to now Monday, but apparently, according to both sides, that they can get this process done in less than half an hour, then on to swearing them in, and then on to jury instructions, then openings, which I think is something that a lot of people are looking forward to seeing.
A lot of people are looking forward to seeing it, to maybe just get a little bit more clarity about the prosecution's case, because so much, as we talked about already, has been under seal, has been redacted. We'll definitely now get a sense of what is this racketeering case? Who potentially are these victims? And let's get into that, or these alleged victims, because I understand there was a lot of discussion about victim one in this case. Victim one, who plays a key role in arguably the whole case.
Okay.
Powerful. So why would she be coerced into doing these types of activities when, you know, she's the one who has been aggressors in these types of domestic spats, as the defense is kind of trying to paint this as. And so they're pretty much going to be honest with the jury that there was mutual physical violence on both ends. So the jury.
So that was also revealed, you know, it's still in a pre-trial stage. One of the arguments that Diddy's lawyers kind of carved out that they're going to be making, or going to be trying to extract from witnesses or whatever in terms of cross-examination, they're going to be saying, and they're kind of conceding this. They're saying, yeah, Diddy and his bitch used to fight. It's mutual combat. She slapped him, he slapped her. Doesn't make it right, but they got physical with each other, and that should be the backdrop of anything. If you're thinking she was just like some innocent angel who was just getting beat up on by Diddy, no, they had a very violent, very toxic relationships where they both put hands on each other. Now, that is probably the strategy to let people know, or to argue to the jury who's going to see evidence of Diddy being violent, and now they could interpret and say, well, this is one of them relationships. They were both fighting each other. So that's not an indicator of, oh, he was beating her ass if she didn't want to do these sex trafficking allegations and freak-offs.
First, we'll know that, you know, obviously we have seen some aspects of that, obviously that being the CNN video, but it seems like from the defense's perspective, they have no choice but to essentially say, you know, hey, there was mutual physical violence on both ends. It wasn't just, you know, Combs against this alleged victim. It was also this alleged victim against Combs too. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting argument that the defense was trying to make. And, you know, whether or not these jurors will actually believe this, or whether or not, or pretty much how they'll interpret this, that's kind of a wait and see, as it always is. But there was another mention of victim one as far as it goes with employee statements. Now, obviously, under the racketeering conspiracy, you know, the government is essentially needing to prove that, you know, Combs was like the head of this, you know, enterprise, this racketeering enterprise and that sort. But they were talking about these employee statements.
Celebrity, you know,
or anything like that. As far as the conversation goes, when Diddy was first indicted and also arrested as well too. But, you know, as far as Mark Garagos, he has been a kind of a controversial figure a little bit since these pretrial things have been kind of going on, and that is the sense that, you know, he had made these comments.
From any lawyer anywhere across the nation. Added, you have one more listener for your podcast, because that's where apparently Garagos had made the comment, and Garagos quipped back, as long as you subscribe, I'm all for it. Now, talking about the prosecutors, who are the prosecutors in this case, Elizabeth?
Well, so who do we know that's going to be on the prosecution? Obviously, we know that the head prosecutor, who is going to be pretty much the face that these jurors are going to see a lot when it comes to the government side of this case, is going to be Maureen Comey. Obviously, she has a famous father who had previously served, you know, in an official capacity as well, too. You know, it's kind of funny because, you know, James Comey, Maureen Comey, and then you have Tenny Garagos, Mark Garagos. It's like Nepo baby lawyers inside that courtroom for this trial. And I just say that kind of jokingly. But as far as the other attorneys go, you know, we have Mary Christine Slavic, who's going to be there, as well as other attorneys like Mitzi Steiner, as well as Olga Zero.
Okay, not that interesting. Okay, so the full update on this, just to summarize, is that they're planning to start probably around noon or after lunch on Monday, and it appears that they're going to have all 43 jurors show up, ask them some really good, quick questions, they're gonna use their preemptive, red flags or strikes, and try to get some people out of the jury pool. They're gonna whittle it down to 18. Those 18, once they're sworn in, they're locked in. They have to show up every day. Okay, you can't play these games of, oh no, you have to show up. If not, you could go to jail and you could be held in contempt, as a juror, because at that point you're locked in. So it looks like this case is going to start at around noon, unless something else happens. The pause that I was saying that, some people that believed it might have been a last-minute plea deal, clearly it's not. Look like they're just still trying to get through this jury selection shit, but there's other arguments being raised. Okay, so we'll see on Monday, and probably Monday in the afternoon, we'll see the first phase of the case. We're going to see how the government is going to do beyond opening statements. They're probably going to do opening statements, take like 3 hours, 2-3 hours. I would imagine like it got to be at least a 20 to 30 minute opening statement from probably both sides, right? This is a really important case. There's going to be a lot of information and witnesses. You want to set the agenda to kind of put it in the brains of the jury of how they should look at things or what they should look for.